How's it going, guys? Philip at Trade Genius. All right, it's been a few days since our last Bitcoin update video, so we're going to cover that today. We're going to take a look at the monthly chart, weekly chart. We're also going to take a look at the crypto fear and greed indicator, as well as our longer term halving chart. I wanted to talk about price action relative to that. So we're going to look at where we've come from, where we're going, and some levels that are going to look to be ideal entries for Bitcoin. So let's dive into this video and check that out.
Trade Genius.
All right, guys, monthly chart on Bitcoin. One of the larger monthly bars that we've seen in the young history of Bitcoin, on par with what we saw Q4 2017 bull market run, right up into the Fibonacci area. So essentially, this is going to be the zone from this high here down to this low. And curious, we ran right up into that. Blue entry is kind of like an optimal short zone for this Fibonacci retracement. And for you bears who think the low is not in, this actually has a target of 1153 for a fib extension target on the downside. But considering where we are in the halving cycle and considering the veracity of this move, this historically has been pegging the bottom. So I'm of the mind that we don't see any more lows for this cycle and that these are the lows for that bear market. So on the monthly chart, what you'd be eyeballing are the levels that we basically broke down from and then ultimately just sliced right through. And typically what happens when that does happen is you are going to see a retracement back to those levels. So for example, if we were just to roughly throw up a line here on the support levels here, which is roughly about there, that's about 6,075. And we do have a volume node at around 6,400. So in that zone there, I mean, typically if you're looking on a monthly scale, we'd see, typically a breakout of a resistance level that happens like this. Typically, you see the retracement come down, bounce, and then resume higher between the 6,000 to 6,400 area, looking from a monthly chart, okay? You need to keep that in mind. The other thing too is on the stochastics, we're coming out of basically the bear market and coming back now, switching over to a bull cycle. So basically, larger dips are to be bought. And we'll talk about that level there too, because that's going to coincide with that 30 to 40% type price pullbacks that we've seen with Bitcoin as it starts to get into its bull cycle, gets above the 200-day moving average. Let's switch to a weekly chart. So weekly chart, guys, again, you see that fib zone that we ran up to. This line here is the USD, CNH, or Chinese yuan currency. And this is going up. It's being devalued, coming down. It's not being devalued. It's going up against the dollar. So that's been, we've been eyeballing that correlation with the devaluation of the yuan and then the price of Bitcoin, with the theory that, China is obviously hedging the devaluation by heading into assets like Bitcoin. As you can see, it kind of topped out, the devaluation topped out middle of May just about, and really hasn't gone anywhere, kind of consolidating really. And Bitcoin did follow through a bit from that point. Bitcoin tops out May 27th and has since pulled back, which we're due for because there really hasn't been much of a pullback at all since this up move started, breaking out of this 4,000 range. We had a period of consolidation, but then several weeks of just straight up. And so finally a pullback seems to be happening this week, and which is healthy. I mean, that's perfectly normal and par for the course. Now, the question is, how low do we go? And this area here, I think, for Bitcoin is going to be a real sweet spot if you get there. I mean, that would fulfill a lot of the historical sized pullbacks that we've seen with Bitcoin once it gets going like this. You also have to keep in mind that we may not see the 30 to 40% type pullbacks that we've seen in previous cycles. So maybe it's only 20 to 30%. So it's just something that you need to have in the back of your mind that may change on this cycle up. There's less Bitcoin out there in circulation. So just keep that in mind. But if we drill down to the daily, and also too, we are very toppy on the stochastic. So what I would probably look to see is if the main red trend line stays pegged, and then what happens is the RSI stochastics drop. That'll be acts as like a recharge for the move, and then another surge higher. So, but that might take a week or 2 or 3 to play out. Okay, so next couple of weekly closes will be key to seeing how that starts to shape up. All right, let's drill down to the daily time frame. Okay, daily time frame, moneymaker sell fired, and we dropped. And if you're interested in those signals, head over to tradelikeagenius.com. Check that out. But this level here, guys, now on the daily is what I'm looking at. This was, we had a little pause in action on the up move here. So this range here, 72.20 approximately down to 69.85 approximately. Is the area that I'm looking for. The other thing too, guys, and we haven't talked about this in a while, but when we start getting our moves on the daily moving averages, so I like to use the weighted moving average. I use a 20 and I use a 65. 20 tells me, when we're in a high momentum move, we generally don't see a close below it. When the move starts to peter out, and we had some bearish divergences playing out on the RSI here, okay, that gives us a heads up that price might take a break. So that's what we saw here. So price fell out of this momentum move, and now typically what happens is we will see a lot of times price come and tag the slower moving average. This one is the weighted moving average 65 that I use, and come down, probe that area, and then resume up. And that move up is key, because that's going to tell us whether or not this bull move continues. So what you want to do is, if we can get a move down here, we get long, more than likely we're going to be targeting this area of resistance around 7,900. And I would suspect that we run into that and we roll over. How the market reacts to that rolling over will be key. If it breaks and reclaims 7,900 and can get back to the 8,000s, then I think, these higher targets of 9,500 to 10K are probably in the cards. I think that this would have to happen before the Litecoin halving in August, however, because I think once we approach that August area, I think you're going to see a general pullback / consolidation in the crypto markets. Switching over to the halving chart. Now you'll notice, again, where we are in relation to the halvings. This is all the, this is the sweet spot now, right? This is where all of the big returns come from. These circles represent approximately the same range before the halving, which are represented by these vertical bars. So we bottomed out pretty perfectly timing wise. But what's interesting is I overlaid some of the bars from previous cycles that kind of give us, this would be like the average expected move, right? Pre-halving, post-halving, topping out here at 180,000 BTC approximately, and that would put us approximately October 2021 if we see average type moves. But we've already started to blow out this move out of the bear market quite a bit. And I do think we do see some sort of consolidation for a period of time on a weekly chart as we head out of, basically consolidating out of this move and then getting ready to recharge the batteries for another move up into the Bitcoin halving event. Again, the halving events themselves seem pretty muted in the past, so we may see sideways or even a pullback into the halving event. But definitely after the halving event, we see a definite surge again. So we're definitely overbought. We've definitely blown out performance-wise beyond what we've expected to see from previous halving cycles. So, again, this is, I think, not that I'm totally surprised by this. I mean, the speed of which this happened is a bit surprising, but I think Bitcoin reminds us that as time goes on, the size of these moves will increase again because supply and demand and Bitcoin circulating gets depleted. So this to me is extremely bullish. Don't get me wrong, but I do think that, we have to be cognizant that this is going to, start running out of steam, which isn't a bad thing. And then we'll get into a period of consolidation. So this is just bigger picture stuff. Let's look at the crypto fear and greed. Now, remember I was telling you, we haven't really seen this in a bull market. So now since January or December, we've seen, higher highs, higher lows on this thing. But it was interesting to see the reading, where this reading was going to top out. I didn't want to do anything actionable off of this current surge until we saw how high it got and then a pullback. So we saw this thing top out at 78. So I think that's a good earmark for what kind of readings that we can expect that tells us things are going to get toppy. This thing dropped really, really fast. The pullback on this wasn't that big of a deal in my opinion, but really rocked the crypto fear and greed. So now everyone's getting real scared. We got a reading down to 27. Once we start seeing sub 20, I think I'm going to be looking at, because I think those lower readings are still going to be probably in play and actionable on the fear side. So once we start seeing those sub 20 readings, that'll be a heads up to just based on the crypto fear and greed index, that getting long's going to be prudent. So nice to see that we've got our first top in to give us kind of a expectation now going forward on the greed index. So that's pretty much it on this one, guys. Again, looking at this 77,000 to 7,200 area pullback wise, I think that would be a sweet spot with tag our slower moving average, which typically happens after the first initial surge. So like the A, B, and then get in for like a C move. But again, it would have to clear on the C move to really make new highs. Key for me will be to clear around this 8,000 level and move up on volume to make higher highs. All right, guys, hope that helps. If you have any questions, leave them below in the comment section. Appreciate you guys watching our videos. Please hit like and subscribe, and I will see you on the next one. Take care. Bye-bye.
Trade Genius.